Dare to enter Crow's Quill's books, where tales of forgotten realms and fearless souls come alive. Today's journey, Operation DarkStar, Chapter 13 to Chapter 14, by Mark Lindsay. Will you uncover the truth hidden in the shadows? Chapter 13. It was known as the Cooker, a melting pot of ethnic variety who were too poor to move anywhere else, once a place of possibilities and opportunity. For the last 10 years, it was an area that hoarded drug use and criminal activity. Some would probably say that compared to this exact moment in time, they would be considered golden years. Buildings were aflame, streets torn up from seismic activity. Unholy beasts were roaming the streets, and anything human was on the menu. 3 figures emerged quietly from a manhole in the road beside a parked car. They were armed with automatic weapons and strapped with large quantities of ammunition. They were cautious, keeping their presence covert. The tallest of the 3 peered around at the destruction around them. It didn't surprise him that the chaos felt natural. Apache had been a scrapper all his life. Growing up in a broken home, he had been beaten by many prospective stepfathers over the years. That was until the age of 15, when he learned a valuable lesson. Be ready to do what others aren't. On one such an occasion, he had taken a kitchen knife to an abusive ogre of a man who liked to get drunk and beat Apache and his mother. He had used the knife to remove the man's eye and 3 fingers. The lesson had earned him a length spot in juvie, but his nearly won reputation meant that the other boys were less likely to mess with him. The following years saw the boy become a man. A short stint in jail for grievous bodily harm caught the attention of the berserkers. That was where he had met his best friend, Bam Bam, a fellow fighter. They had taken the jobs others refused to do, and they excelled at it. Within a few short years, Apache was promoted to sergeant at arms. The berserkers were now finished, and Apache was a survivor. He knew that whatever was happening now was going to change everything as they knew it. Nothing would ever be the same. "What do we do now?" Bam Bam asked. He seemed eager to move on. However, their options didn't appear to be that great. "The world is up shit creek. Now is not the time to be doing anything rash or stupid. We need to hunker down," Apache said. "You have a place in mind?" Bam Bam asked. "I do as a matter of fact, but it'll be dangerous," Apache replied. Popeye shrugged nonchalantly. "More so than this," Bam Bam sniggered. "Quite possibly," Apache replied. "Well, let's do something. All this talk is boring the hell out of me," Popeye growled. Bam Bam and Apache did a double take. In all the years they had known the older man, not once had they ever heard him say so much in one sentence. In fact, it lent gravity to their current circumstances. A piercing scream cut through the air. It was the personification of pure terror. All 3 men turned in its direction. "Children," Bam Bam hissed. No words amongst them were spoken. They knew that any deviation now would probably result in their deaths. Society might see them as scum, but they had a code. Apache led the way. The 3 of them were used to not being seen. They moved quickly and quietly along the darkened street towards where the scream had originated. The city was full of horror and heartache. It was now a place in Dante's Inferno, but the scream they had heard was different. They were compelled to act. They passed a bus completely on fire. Inhabitants inside were writhing in agony. To Apache, it smelled like a barbecue. In the distance, a man howled in pain as he was pulled apart by several creatures in black. Something that looked vaguely like a giant spider had a woman in its mouth as it scuttled up the side of a building. They passed a naked man, dressed only in an advertising placard that read, "The end is eternity," They rounded a corner leading into an alleyway, its darkness almost complete. They entered slowly, weapons raised as their eyes adjusted to the pitch black. Another scream, which was joined by others. It was further down the end. They picked up their pace. Bam Bam could now see movement, although his eyes had trouble making out what could be so big. "There!" Popeye yelled. The old biker was pointing at a dumpster. It took the others several seconds of squinting, but they eventually were able to make out movement under the large steel bin. 3, maybe 4 kids, Apache growled. "And that other thing?" Bam Bam asked. Apache tilted his head to one side until his neck cracked loudly. "God knows, but whatever that other fucking thing is." "Light it up," Apache growled. There was no hesitation. All 3 men turned their weapons on the large, dark mass. Large caliber ammunition torn into its hide. Black blood splashed the ground beneath it. However, the creature refused to move. It seemed intent on getting the children underneath the large steel dumpster. The 3 men spread out and continued to unleash their firepower onto the creature. Apache's rifle clicked empty as he changed the magazine. The beast swung its giant head towards him and roared. A mouth that reminded the biker of a crocodile, it opened and slammed shut, displaying hundreds of jagged teeth. Apache dropped his gaze towards the children. A plan was immediately formulated. "I'll try and keep it occupied. You 2 grab the kids," Apache yelled out. Without waiting for a response, he raced forward, firing his rifle, yelling insults in an attempt to divert the creature's attention. "Come on, you ugly bastard," Apache taunted, his bullets ripping into his tough hide of the monster. It screamed in pain. Bam Bam and Popeye wasted no time, with the giant hellspawn's attention diverted. They moved quickly into where the children were hiding. "Take my hand," Bam Bam urged. He was now laying on his side beside the dumpster, his arms stretched out. None of the children moved. Fear had gripped them tight. They were too scared to move. The creature they faced was the size of a small truck. Its appearance similar to a crocodile, except for the fact that its skin was the color of midnight and that it had 3 pairs of glowing red eyes. It scuttled quickly towards Apache. Firing his assault rifle, the biker dived to one side, barely evading the beast's attack. The monster snapped its mighty jaws in an attempt to snare the much smaller human with its gnashing teeth. "Hurry up, we don't have much time," Bam Bam insisted. The biker had managed to coax one of the children towards him, then using his arm, scooped the child out, a girl, no more than 6 years old. "You're okay," Bam Bam said. The girl remained silent but nodded. "Give me a hand," Bam Bam urged Popeye, the older man wasting no time in crawling under the dumpster towards the other kids, who weren't as eager as the girl to be coaxed out. "Come on, little ones," Popeye urged in a gruff voice. This was followed by an attempt at a smile that showed many missing teeth from brawling. In the background, the sounds of automatic fire and the roars from the beast. "Don't listen. Trust me. I won't let it hurt you," Popeye added, with such intensity it was impossible to deny. The 2 children crawled towards the biker as he pulled them free. The creature reared back and screamed in frustration. Apache wasted no time emptying another magazine into the monster. Black blood erupted from the wounds. However, they were far from mortal. "Hurry up, guys. I don't know how much longer I can keep this shithead occupied," Apache yelled. "Then let's get the fuck out," a voice behind the sergeant at arms said. It was Bam Bam. In one hand, he held the little girl, the other a grenade, its pin removed. "If it's hungry, let's give it something to eat," Bam Bam added. Feeding time. Apache smiled. Along with Popeye, they slowly retreated back down the alley, attempting to shield the children as best they could, firing their weapons at the monster every time it raised his head and appeared ready to charge. "How do you want to run this?" Popeye asked. "I was thinking I could make the thing angry enough to open its mouth and Bam Bam could place his boom ball into the beastie's grubby hole," Apache said. "Some plan," Bam Bam muttered. "Well, we do have the master of pissing people off here. If anyone was going to make it angry, it would be you, kid," Popeye chuckled. "Good. I'll get it to open its mouth. You do the rest," Apache said to Bam Bam. Then without another word, the biker broke from the group and proceeded to make as much noise as possible. "Can you do it?" Popeye asked dubiously. The older biker was now shielding all the children. "Well, I did play a lot of baseball in my youth," Bam Bam replied. Apache took the offensive, charging the monstrosity and firing wildly, then ducking and rolling at the last second. This tactic was made harder by the size of the thing and the narrow alley. Preparing to go again, the beast was ready, and when Apache followed through, the creature was ready, swiping the smaller figure with its deadly claws and raking the biker's shoulder, leaving 3 deep gouges in the flesh. "Ah!" Apache cried out, reaching back and feeling the warm wet he knew was blood. As he picked himself up from the floor of the alley, the beast reared up and prepared to fall upon him. Its mouth opened wide, and as it drew itself closer. "What the hell are you waiting for?" Apache yelled. There was nowhere for him to go, and his assault rifle was out of reach. The monster's mouth loomed over him, ready to tear the biker apart, when something small and round flew into the beast's mouth. The creature stopped in its tracks. Small black eyes contemplated what had just occurred when a massive explosion ripped the creature's head apart. Black blood, brains, and skull fragments rained down around them. What was left of the creature stood still for a long second before it collapsed to the ground, shuddered once, then fell still. "I hope to hell there isn't another one of those back there," Popeye said, breaking the silence. "Hope to hell. I think hell has opened up and now we're going to have to deal with more things like that," Apache said, pointing at the beast with the missing head. "Great story, brother. Just scare the kids, why don't ya?" Bam Bam replied, taking a knee next to the small girl he had saved only moments earlier. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Beth," the girl stammered, her eyes large and wide. "Beth, my friend doesn't really know what's going on, but we know a way to get to safety," Bam Bam soothed. Apache grabbed his friend by the arm and pulled him to his feet. "What are you doing?" Apache hissed. "What do you mean?" Bam Bam replied, confused. "You can't make that promise," Apache insisted. "Brother, we can't leave these kids." "I won't leave these kids," Bam Bam said. Apache looked around at Popeye in the hope the older biker would intervene with some common sense. However, he was standing next to the other 2 children, his expression saying that he was siding with Bam Bam on this issue. "Great. That's just peachy. Fine, we'll help the kids." Apache fumed. "You won't regret this," Bam Bam said, clapping one hand on Apache's shoulder. "I am already," Apache replied, although the truth of the matter was that a measure of relief had filled his being. Chapter 14. Since fleeing the train carriage, Mary, Paige, and Martin had been moving within the darkness of the tunnel. Their progress was slow and clumsy. They ignored the bruises and scrapes they earned, their only desire to remain safe and intact, behind the formless beast that continued to follow them. "What is it?" Paige panted. Mary was silent several minutes before answering. "It's nothing." Mary lied. In truth, she had no idea what was occurring, but a sliver of fear had buried itself into her very being, a primal fear that resisted reason and understanding. She knew to ignore it would mean their deaths. But Mommy, listen to your mother. She knows best, Martin interrupted. Paige had more questions, but instead fell silent. Something was terribly wrong, and whether her mother chose to admit it out loud or remain silent, it didn't change the fact that there was something following them. Mary turned to Martin in the darkness and did the best she could at keeping her voice from her daughter. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," Martin replied quietly. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," Mary sighed. "You have to," Martin was quick to respond. "And if I can't," Mary added. "Then I'll carry you," Martin said. "You have to promise me, if it comes to it. Leave me and take my daughter to safety," Mary said. "It won't come to that," Martin said. "But if it does..." "You don't even know me. How can you possibly trust me with such an important request?" Martin insisted. "Because you are the only one I have," Mary said, desperation in her voice. She could sense Martin contemplating the gravity of their circumstances and what she was asking. "Don't worry. I still have a little life in me," Mary added. Time, it seemed, had lost all its meaning down below the surface of the earth, and with the glowing eyes and rhythmic lurching of the things behind them, it made every second seem like hours. Paige was the first to hear it. Her excitement, however, wasn't shared by her mother and Martin. "We have to hurry," Paige said, tugging on Mary's arm. The sound was metal striking metal, like a hammer hitting steel. "Maybe train line workers?" Martin said hopefully. "Maybe," Mary replied tentatively. They could now see lights up ahead, bright and intense. They continued, but slowly and cautiously. They rounded a small bend and could now clearly see the light was sparks and electrical discharges from a smashed power box. They shielded their eyes from the intense burst of light, and after what seemed an eternity of darkness. Martin scanned the area. It was in complete disarray. Things smashed and destroyed. Martin's jaw clenched. "It looks as if there's been a fight," he whispered. Mary bit her lip and pulled her daughter tighter. Martin was the first to climb the side of the rail and up onto the platform. Satisfied there was no immediate threat, he assisted Paige, then Mary also up onto the platform, the latter looking pale and worn out. "Are you okay?" Martin asked. "Nothing you can help with," Mary replied cryptically. Huddled together, they ventured forth, Martin leading the way. Even with the sparks, the area was shrouded in pockets of black. Martin led them towards an overturned tool trolley, and after noisily tossing through its contents, retrieved a torch and hammer. "Just in case," he whispered, seeing Mary's eyes go wide. "Just in case of what?" Paige asked innocently. "Just in case I need a hammer." Martin smiled back. Turning the torch on, he allowed the beam to traverse the platform and reveal its secrets. Safety rails had been knocked over and signs and lighting smashed. His earlier summation that there had been fight was proving to be accurate. "What do you think happened here?" Mary asked. "Panic when they were evacuating?" Martin suggested. They could still hear the banging of metal on metal, but as yet, they couldn't find its origin. "There's a door over there." Paige pointed towards the far end of the platform, and after Martin flashed his torch in that direction, satisfied, he led them over. There were more overturned garbage bins and broken glass that littered their path. Martin's grip on the hammer tightened until his knuckles went white. It was a maintenance access door, and when the torch beam struck its surface, they could all see that it was covered in blood. Mary stifled a cry, attempting to cover her daughter's eyes, What? What is it? Paige said impatiently, shrugging off her mother's hands, then immediately falling silent when she saw the smeared red handprints. I hate to say it, but this appears to be the only way out, Martin said apprehensively. The rhythmic banging of metal on metal that they had first heard when they approached could now be heard directly behind the only access out. I'll go first. If there is any trouble, run. Don't be a hero, Martin warned. Handing over the torch to the young mother, he advanced, one hand holding the raised hammer, the other slowly turning the handle to the door. The door led them into a narrow access tunnel with metal stairs that led up. Blood was smeared everywhere, and as they passed through, Paige stumbled and the young girl nearly tumbling over, Mary preventing her at the last moment. Thinking it was a hose or cable, Mary shone the light down, the torch's beam revealing it to be a length of intestine. Gagging, Mary struggled to keep herself from vomiting, instead focusing on her young daughter and pulling the girl through the subterranean nightmare. The banging continued, increasing its drawn-out, repetitious tone over and over. "Why is this happening to us?" Mary whispered. Shakespeare once said, "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." I'm sure the bard was referring to evil men, but now... I'm not so sure, Martin said. He fell silent as something flashed ahead in the tunnel. What was that? Mary hissed. Shh. Martin was quick to reply. The hand that held the hammer was trembling with adrenaline and fear. Never in his life had he ever been so afraid. The tunnel opened up into a T-junction. To their left and right, 2 doors, both covered in blood. Squinted in the darkness, Martin tried desperately to see which way to go. There's nothing to the left. It just ends. I can't see how far the right goes, Martin whispered. What about the doors? Paige asked. Martin and Mary looked at the blood-smeared doors with dread and apprehension. I'll check where they lead, Martin said. The metallic banging was the loudest it had been so far. Behind one of the doors, Martin was sure they'd find its source. No matter where they turned, none of their options looked enticing. Please be careful, Mary begged. Of course, Martin replied, doing his best to alleviate their fears. Steadying himself, he moved in towards the left door, and using the hammer as a club, he ripped the door open. His heart beating like a jackhammer, instant relief when it revealed it to be a maintenance closet, and nothing more. He readied himself again on the right side door, his hand poised on the handle. He was just about to enter when Mary let out a shrill scream. Turning, Martin could now see a figure lumbering its way towards them, emerging from the right side tunnel. Red, gleaming eyes broke the darkness. "Get behind me!" Martin yelled. Mary, quick to obey, dragged her daughter away from the oncoming threat. Whatever was approaching was in no hurry. A grill of gleaming white, razor-sharp teeth, eager for an easy kill. When I say go, grab your daughter and get yourselves through that second door, Martin growled. Mary eyed the door, her options non-existent. She held her daughter's hand in a vice-like grip. The beast charged the young man like a raging bull. Martin swung his hammer, hitting the creature in the head, which only added to its rage, the beast's momentum taking them both to the ground. This violent altercation finally shook Mary into action as she threw open the second door. The banging they had been hearing since entering the maintenance area immediately stopped as a man-sized shadow tore through the now open door and knocked Mary to the floor. Savage animal fangs started to rip the screaming woman's throat open. Blood poured from the open wound. Paige just stood there, her eyes open, unable to move. Mary was losing her struggle against the monster. She locked eyes with Paige. Run! Run! Mary screamed. Paige paused for a long moment, her mother's blood splashing everywhere. Overwhelming fear forced her to act. With her mother's words etched into her consciousness and the vision of Mary and Martin being torn apart, she knew in that one instance that there was nothing more she could do. She dived past the open door and slammed it behind. Paige could hear the sounds of struggle, and knowing in her heart who would be the victorious, she raced down the corridor and towards uncertainty. That seals today's tale in shadows. We hope Operation DarkStar has drawn you deeper into its enigma. Return soon to Crow's Quill's books, where the next chapter awaits, whispering secrets yet untold.